Hello everyone, and welcome to my augmentation guide for Monster Hunter World. It is March 2019, and it's been, a little over a year since the game came out, and I've had a lot of time to play the game, and I feel like I have a much better understanding of how to think of augmentations. It's especially important to figure out how to augment your weapons. Then you also want to be able to augment your armor in a meaningful way. I would say the best thing about your armor is to understand what you should be augmenting. There's also augmentation, well, not augmentations, but there's the expenditure of Streamstones with the Elder Melders that you'll do that for re-rolling your decorations. And finally, you could ask, how do you earn Streamstones? So let's start there. First of all, I'll show you how to farm a Streamstone. You're going to go to your quest board, post a new quest, choose an investigation, and you're going to choose these investigations with the purple rewards. These are called special rewards. They give you a chance for a decoration. They also give you a chance for a Streamstone. If you're fighting a tier 2 monster, such as Legiana, you have a very small chance for a Rarity 8 Hero Streamstone. Very low chance. The Hero Streamstones are used with Rarity 8 weapons, okay? So those are the rare weapons. However, if you want a better chance for the Hero Streamstones, you would fight an Elder Dragon. So now you understand that a little bit. There's also a large variety of other Streamstones you can consider farming for. Let me mention first that you can get these Streamstones from, I just showed you, special investigations. You can get them from the Arch-Tempered Elder Dragons. You can also get them from event quests, the rotating event quests, right? Capcom has an event quest schedule, and Relish the Moment with Devil Joe is a good example of an event quest that can give you more Streamstones than usual. Another, I believe Throne Taker is another one. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So let's talk to these guys real fast at the Resource Center. They always want to have a little conversation. We're going to choose Manage Investigations, and notice if I push in my right joystick, I'm going to get this little menu of how to sort all of my rewards. You can go by special rewards, and here we are. All the special rewards are sorted. Notice that I can work on the ones that give the most first. So there's 4 chances at Streamstones. Same with this one, right? And that's probably what I recommend. So that's how you earn them. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. We're going to go to Sell Items. We're going to scroll over to our materials. Oh, there's a Streamstone. What's that? Warrior Streamstone Ranged. So that's a weapon-specific Streamstone, but that's not what I want to show you. I want to show you, oh, here we are. So there's a Streamstone Shard, and it acts as kind of like a currency. There's going to be transactions where you have to have this as part of the transaction. Same with this one. It's just called Streamstone. It's very generic, right? And then finally, this here, Gleaming Streamstone. Once again, it's kind of a generic currency that gets used, and this one's much more valuable and harder to earn. You can see I only have 14 of them left. And then we have the Streamstones that are specific to weapons. You earn these at the end of your, your special rewards give you these. They're called Sully Streamstones, and then you evaluate them, and they're going to turn into one of these, like a sword, blade, lance, axe, shaft. You saw ranged earlier. And then here are the Hero Streamstones that I mentioned as well. These are Rarity 8, so they're a little harder to get, and they're used for augmenting your Rarity 8 weapons. So you have sword, blade, hammer, lance, axe, and shaft, right? So that's the whole idea of Streamstones. You earn them by doing the right investigations, special quests, Arch-Tempered Elder Dragons. They're saved in your box like a material, and some are used as a generic currency for transactions. Others are used specifically for augmenting certain weapon types. So the next thing we can talk about is the Elder Melder. She's going to use your Streamstones in something called the First Wyverian Ritual. You have 3 options here. The top one's going to give you, if you go through with this transaction, you're going to get a Mysterious Face Stone. Those are terrible. Glowing Face Stone, those are slightly better. And Worn Face Stone, which are the best, they give you a very small chance of getting a very rare decoration. Let me say this though, you can easily run out of Gleaming Streamstones going through this transaction. So if you just started the game, it might be worth it, because you might get, something new you've never had, like a shield decoration, protective polish, elementalist. If you're like me and you've got almost all of the decorations and you just need a few, like a handful, you're going to waste all your Gleaming Streamstones on this transaction, because your odds of actually getting what you need are very small, very small. So I don't really recommend this unless you're using a trick called save scumming. It's technically, people consider it cheating. Save scumming is where you create a cloud backup of your save, you put that to the side, then you go into your game, it's going to create a local save, and you do all your transactions with the Elder Melder, and let's say you didn't get what you wanted. Well, you would delete your local save, you'd delete it, and then you'd replace it with that backup save that you got from the cloud. That's what you would do. So that's a simplified explanation of what save scumming is now. There's a few guides on save scumming. I believe I made one myself. I'll leave a link to it in the my comment section. I believe it was in my latest decoration guide. I can't remember though. I made that one so long ago, almost a year ago. So yeah, that's save scumming with the Elder Melder, and you can see that the Elder Melder eats up your Streamstones for doing this re-roll transaction with your decorations. Let's go up to the workshop. So we have to talk about the next easy thing to understand about augmentations. Again, I don't think a lot of people have trouble with this. This is just something you would want to know if you're a new player. So all of your armor has like a default defense, and what you can do is you can actually raise that defense. So let's choose one, Geralt's Arms Alpha. And we're going to use, these are our armor spheres. We're doing an upgrade. I'm going to go ahead and max out. You'll notice it goes up to level 4. We'll bring that back down. So at level 1, the defense is at 70. At level 4, the defense is 76. Not really that much, right? What you can do is you can actually go in and choose Augment Equipment. And this time we're actually going to augment these Geralt's Arms. You'll notice when you augment it, it costs 1 Gleaming Streamstone. And what you're going to do is you're going to have an upgrade limit removal. We'll go ahead and do that. It asks you if you're sure. Yes, I am. And then we're going to go in and choose Upgrade Equipment again. When you go back to it, you can actually upgrade this way past that limit. So it used to be you can bring it up to level 4. Now I can bring it up to level 11, and you'll notice the new defense is going to be 90. So starts at 70, goes all the way up to 90. That's a difference of 20 defense. It's a much better deal, right? If you take that for each piece of armor, that's going to be 20 per piece, or 20 times 5. It's going to be 100 additional defense. So you're talking about a pretty decent chunk of defense at that point that will actually affect your survivability. Right, the criticism of defense typically when you're talking about the defense boost skill or defense augmentation is it doesn't really give you that much, but when we're talking about with armor, it actually does. It's just very expensive. Alright, so that's raising the defense of your armor in a nutshell. You can see I've actually done it with a lot of my armor pieces. Damascus Mail at level 14, here's the Guild Cross Circlet, level 11, defense of 82, right? So you can see I've done this quite a bit. This is 92, right? That's pretty high. So I've augmented a lot of my armor, and some pieces of armor are more valuable to augment than others, and that's because they're going to be used more than others. We can talk about that a little bit if you want. Why don't we choose Change Equipment? And for the helmet, Guild Cross Circlet's a good option, Nergi Helmet's a good option, Dragon Armet, of course, the whole Dragon set, of course, right? Dragon King Eye Patch is a good option. These are all the helmets you might want to augment first, right? So Emperor's Crown, not as much, right? Crown Alpha, Zenitjiva Headgear Gamma, of course. That's because the Gamma set, even the Alpha set, so if you're really behind in the game or you're really just starting the end game, when you build the Zenitjiva Alpha Beta set, because you're not ready to fight the Gamma version of him, when you build those, it's probably worth it to augment those if you can afford it at the time. What's another? Okay, here's one. The Gamma set for Teostra. Of course, you want to augment this. One of the best armor sets in the game, similar to the Draken set. Right, so this is what you kind of do. You kind of go in. Augmenting is very expensive, but you want to augment some of the best pieces first. Damascus Mail, of course. All of the Draken set. I already said that. Well, let's find another one. Emperor's Mail, yeah. I mean, this isn't really a beginner's chest piece in my opinion. It's more like for advanced players, so you wouldn't worry about that quite as much. Kulv Taroth Ire, definitely. That's a terrific beginner set, a beginner's chest piece, right? Let's see if there's more. Kulv Taroth Ire Alpha, if you don't have the crit gems. I don't know. I might save it for the beta version. Let's see. You know, we could just go through these if you wanted. It would take a while, I think, to go through all of them, but you get the idea. Some pieces of armor are really a lot more valuable than other pieces of armor, and so you would definitely, if you're limited on resources, you would definitely want to start out with augmenting them. Here's a perfect example: Empress Greaves Beta, which is giving you 2 levels of health boost, 2 medium decoration slots. Go ahead and augment that if you're new in the game and you're looking for something to augment. There's a Draken set again. Where's the Kieran? Here they are. Yeah, Kieran Leg Guards Beta. Really popular legs, right? Gives you 2 levels of free element. Go ahead and augment that one early, right? So yeah, that's the idea. Now we get to the last part of the video, and this is going to be talking all about augmenting your weapons. When it comes to your weapons, the augmentations are this permanent change you make, and they actually have a big effect on the damage output and survivability of your build. So it's pretty important to really understand how you should be augmenting each of your weapons. Let's go take a look at what your actual options are for augmentations. Alright, we're going to choose Augment Equipment, and we're going to actually choose, let's see, let's just choose a Greatsword. So here's Purgation's Atrocity, and first of all, you're going to see your options. You have Attack Increase, Affinity Increase, Defense Increase, Slot Upgrade, and Health Increase. They all work differently. You're probably wondering, how do these work and which one is best? So I kind of want to answer that question for you. Attack Increase is giving you 5 more raw power per level, and that's true for each level. Actually, you know, let me pick a different Greatsword as a better example. So we're going to use Mud Gold Fellsword. The reason for that is because this is a Rarity 6 weapon that gives you 3 augments. In fact, let's start there. Rarity 6 weapons get 3 augments. Rarity 7 weapons get 2 augmentations. They actually cost 4 Streamstones though, so I'll show you right here. So you click on it, and it's going to cost you 2 Warrior Streamstones per augmentation. That means to augment both of these slots, it's going to cost you 4 Warrior Streamstones. Whereas with the Rarity 6, you'll notice it only costs 1. See? So you get 3 augmentations, and it only costs 3 of the Warrior Streamstones. It's actually a lot cheaper, and you're getting 3 augmentations. So that's the difference between Rarity 6 and Rarity 7, and then for Rarity 8, it's even more different. You only get a single augmentation, and it's going to cost you a Hero Streamstone and a Gleaming Streamstone, as well as you'll notice various rare gems like a Nergigante gem, Val gem, Deora gem, Teostra gem, whereas if we jump over here to the purple weapons, you'll notice the gems change again. Rathalos Ruby, Odogaron gem, which I never have enough of, Wyvern gem, right? Legiana gem, and Anjanath gem, which I definitely never have enough of. I'm always out of those. And that means you want to actually be conservative about how you're spending your gems, right? Then over here it changes once more, right? So health regen is just an Anjanath plate, Legiana plate, Wyvern gem, Odogaron plate, Rathalos plate. So the gems, the rarer it is, the more expensive it is. That's the rule. Alright, so that's kind of talking about cost, but again, we want to talk a little bit more about what are these actually doing. This is giving me 5 raw per level, and you can bring it up by 3 levels. So I can actually raise the damage of this Greatsword by 15 raw. Here you have Affinity Increase. Affinity Increase is a little bit different. The first level is giving you plus 10 affinity, right? You can actually see that when I scroll over it. Mud Gold Fellsword's affinity goes from -20 to -10, and that's because it's gained 10 more affinity, right? So it has less negative affinity. Talking about basic math. So the first level affinity is going to give you 10% more, and then the next 2 levels is only going to give you like 5% more affinity per level. So it goes 10, 5, 5. We have the defense increase. You should strictly never be using the defense increase, and that's primarily because it's not giving you enough defense. So it's giving you plus 10 defense, and it's really not that much. In this game, the defense value, in order for it to have an impact on your survivability, you really have to be raising it by a pretty heavy amount, and even then is only marginally useful. And the problem is you have so many other options like health regen, for defense that is, you can, like protection and stuff like that. There's many ways to raise your actual survivability in the game, but building for defense is almost never the answer. It's strictly not the answer. So you shouldn't be taking this. It does come with a built-in weakened form of protective, Divine Blessing, I should say. It comes with a kind of a weak form of Divine Blessing and is really not worth it. And that's because it has an opportunity cost. You're building defense increase instead of one of these others. Slot Upgrade is another one. You're not going to take it very often. There's like some really niche situations where you might take it. The way Slot Upgrade increase works is, Slot Upgrade, I should say. At level 1, it's going to give you an additional small decoration slot, which is what you can see here. When I scroll over it, you can see my weapon is given an extra small decoration slot. If you take Slot Upgrade 2, it's going to give you a medium decoration slot. It's going to drop the extra small one. The small one's going to turn into a medium one. And the same if you take 3. It's going to upgrade all the way into a large decoration slot, and you won't have like a small decoration slot, a medium decoration slot, a large one. It's an upgrade of the only decoration slot you've added. So you get a small one at level 1, a medium one at level 2, and a large one at level 3, and that's all you get. Finally, we have health regen, and this is a big deal. I think it's a skill really used both by expert players and by beginner players. The way it works is when you damage the monster, it heals you for a little bit, right? So we see this also with the Nergigante skill, what is it called? Why would I not be able to remember? Hasten recovery? Right. So you deal damage to the monster and it's going to heal you. What's nice about health to regen is it always heals you every time you deal damage. Now there is a bit of information about it. Health to regen does have diminishing returns. So the first level of health to regen is the most valuable, and the next 2 levels is kind of like affinity, where it's going to do about half of the health to regen per hit. The other thing is, with health to regen, the way it works is it has an internal cooldown timer, where if you're attacking too quickly, you're not actually getting all of the benefits of the health regen. So a great example is going to be spread damage. If you're using spread shot on a bowgun or spread shot on a heavy bowgun, you'll notice it's spread out in a big, there's a whole bunch of pellets, and each of those pellets count as an individual attack. Well, only one of the pellets is going to give you health regen. And so you're talking about maybe health regen on dealing like 20 damage. Really, really bad health regen. So if you have a spread shot build, you don't take health regen. It's almost meaningless. Alright, so now your question is, what should we build here? Attack increase, affinity increase, defense increase, slot upgrade, or health regen? The truth is, it varies from weapon to weapon, and it helps if we take a look at a number of the weapons. Let's go ahead and choose change equipment, and I'll talk about some of my favorite weapons and why I augmented them the way I did. We'll start with the Greatsword. So Greatswords do a terrific job with health regeneration. One hit from a Greatsword is going to heal really high. This is Anguish. So Anguish is a Devil Joe weapon. What you see typically with Devil Joe weapons is you will take 1 health regen augmentation and 1 affinity increase augmentation. That's kind of the meta right there, right? Affinity increase tends to be chosen over attack increase when you have a struggle reaching 100% affinity. So in this game, why don't I choose change equipment? And let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. That's a Kaiser set. Okay, this is a good example. So in this game, you'll notice a lot of the time people are building this armor set called the Draken Armor set. That's the Draken Armor set, and I have the Empress, the Lunastra beta chest piece on. It's the Empress something. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, this is the Draken set, and the reason we love the Draken set is because of the Master's Touch skill. Okay, you can see it there on the right. Under status, I have 4 pieces of the Draken set and it's giving me Master's Touch. And really the way Master's Touch is working is as long as you land a critical hit on your target, you're not losing any white sharpness. So as long as you're hitting a critical hit, and the way it works in this game is affinity determines your likelihood of landing a critical hit. Well, let's take a look at my affinity then. I'm going to choose, actually I think we can see it from right here. So you can see my affinity on the right is located right under my sharpness, is at 50%. I also have a skill called Weakness Exploit. So we're going to take a look at that. Weakness Exploit says attacks that hit weak spots have 50% increased affinity. So Weakness Exploit paired with 50% base affinity is giving me 100% affinity, and that means I never lose white sharpness. And white sharpness, as you know, it has a damage modifier on it that's higher than blue sharpness. So keeping your white sharpness all the time is a really big advantage in this game. Finally, I'm kind of teaching you guys how damage is done. That's what I'm doing. So finally we have the crit boost, and we try to bring that up to level 3 if we can. What do I have it at? Level 3. So there's kind of this combination of a few skills that are really bringing your attack up really high, your damage up. And that's 100% affinity with white sharpness, Master's Touch, and crit boost. You get those 4 going and you deal a lot of damage. So when it's time to choose how should I augment this weapon, a lot of people are going to decide to augment it so that they can reach 100% affinity. And then in cases where your weapon is already at 100% affinity, that's where you can kind of decide whether or not you want an attack augmentation. So let's go ahead and augment equipment. We'll choose equipped. You're going to see me using on the Empress Cane Ruin a health regen augmentation. And the question is, why didn't I go affinity? The reason why is because I was able to reach 100% affinity with no trouble. So then your next question is, well, why didn't you do an attack increase rather than health regen? And the reason why is because I'm wearing this piece of armor called the, what is the name of the piece of armor? It's the Lunastra beta chest. Empress Mail. I'm wearing the Empress Mail and it's giving me peak performance. The way the peak performance skill works is when your health is full, you're able to get a nice large damage boost. When you take any damage, you lose that damage boost. So a lot of experts in the game are going to be wearing the Empress Mail chest piece when they can afford it, and then they're going to be going for an actual health regen augmentation to help maintain it. Does that make sense? So you have some monsters, if they deal a little bit of chip damage to you, that's okay. You heal it up by dealing damage to the monster, and then peak performance becomes active again. So that's the whole idea. And another reason why you might bring health regen is because it's also a terrific defensive skill to have. See, it's also terrific for people who are just trying to stay alive. There's a few monsters that deal tick damage all the time. A great example would be Arch-Tempered Valhazak. How about Lunastra? She deals tick damage. There's the Ancient Leshen. He deals a lot of tick damage. And having an augmentation on your weapon for health regen is really valuable against those monsters. And even when you're fighting monsters that don't deal tick damage, let's say you take a light hit from that monster, just a little nudge, it's nice to be able to just heal that back up rather than having it slowly whittle down your health to a point where you have to heal. Especially on big weapons like Greatswords, you can actually heal up from like half health. You can heal up pretty fast. Let's try a different build real fast. Right, so Wyvern Ignition Impact. Alright, so here you can see I've got Dragon Set again, and I'm using an Empress Coil. It's an Empress Coil, and that's being used for Tool Specialist. Tool Specialist gives me my mantles back faster. Let's take a look at the augmentations I did on that. We'll go over to Augment Equipment. We'll choose Equipped right here. And then you're going to see I have one health regen augmentation and one affinity increase augmentation. So for weapons that have room for 2 augmentations, this is really common. The first one helps me maintain my health, is defensive, and it works with peak performance. The affinity increase is getting me closer to 100% affinity. Remember that? That's really important. So you'll notice on this weapon, it has a really small sliver of white sharpness. Really small sliver of white sharpness, right? And that's not a big deal as long as I can maintain 100% affinity. So let's go to Equipment Information. You'll notice once again I have Weakness Exploit 3. Now Weakness Exploit 3, where is it? It's giving me 50% more affinity on weak spots. So I have, if you notice, I have 50 base affinity once again, and 50% affinity coming from a Weakness Exploit. Then I have that small sliver of white sharpness, and the truth is, if I traded my affinity augmentation out for an attack augmentation, I would do a bit more damage, but I would lose that white sharpness much faster. Like much, much faster. So that's why the affinity augmentation ended up becoming the meta in the game. Health regen, affinity increase. Now, let's say I'm using a different weapon. Let's say I'm using, I explained this earlier. Let's say I'm using a bow. Let's try change equipment. And we're going to choose category, bow. Alright, so here's the Sierra Coil Bender, and you'll notice it's a rarity 8 weapon, and for the augmentation, I actually went with an affinity augmentation. The question is, why didn't I choose health regen? Wouldn't it be better to have health regen to keep me alive? The answer is no. That's because arrows are one of the weapons that have the most divided attacks in the game. You don't have like any heavy hitting attacks. All of the attacks are these little split up attacks with the arrows, and so you almost never get good health regen. It's one of the downsides to playing a bow, right? You see experts play very well with the bow. The bow, you can keep away from your target, you can dance evade, right? There's a lot of nice things going for the bow, but health regen is not one of those things. Another example would be, to a less degree, you would have that issue with dual blades. So with dual blades, a lot of the time you'll choose affinity increase over health regen just because it's a very mobile weapon, just like the bow. The issue is that its attacks come out so quickly that you're not really getting that much health regen from your attacks. And it turns out having that extra 10% affinity is helping you reach 50% affinity faster. So here's another interesting thing about the bow and the dual blades. Neither of them can use a skill called Maximum Might, and a lot of weapons choose Maximum Might to bring them up to 50% base affinity. So let me show you Maximum Might. This will help make sense of things. I have Maximum Might right here, and it says, while active, increases affinity by 10%. Well, it says it increases your affinity when your stamina is full, but the issue for both bows and dual blades is that your affinity is rarely full, because when you're attacking with those weapons, you're actually expending your stamina. So Maximum Might is not working, and you're losing out on that 30% affinity you would have gotten from a Maximum Might build. That's why affinity augmentations on bows and dual blades is so critical. Alright, now I want to show you one more interesting scenario. There are some weapons that don't really worry about affinity at all. A great example would be bowguns. Maybe gun lances and maybe charge blades to a lower extent. You guys will have to give some feedback on the charge blades. On the charge blades, when you do an augmentation, is it ever optimal to skip affinity in favor of attack? Let me know in the comment section. So here's a let's see. So here's a gun lance, and what I've done here is I've gone with health regen. I could have gone with an affinity boost because the melee attacks on that gun lance would have benefited from affinity, but the issue is a lot of the time with a weapon like this, it's more of a defensive weapon, so having that health regen is actually really beneficial for casual play. And then for hardcore play, they could still choose affinity increase for like a speed run if they really wanted to go with a maxed shell damage and melee damage build. Let's see what else I have for these. So here's a case with King Gold Exploder where I've actually gone double health regen, and this is like for strictly defensive builds. So I have a real defensive build with this weapon, and I'm getting extra health regen, and I compare that with the medicine decorations. What is that actually called? I think it's called Recovery Up. Find it over here. Here it is, medicine. Increase the amount recovered when restoring health. You'll notice it works by percentage, right? So you can take this skill, pair it with the double health regen augmentation, and just heal a whole bunch of your health back every time you attack. And what I do with this weapon is I just spam the shells. I'm not really interested in building for the melee damage, and in the end, I'm able to efficiently build for lots of defense and lots of health recovery, and it ends up doing quite well because of that. So that's an example of focusing on health regen above the other things. You'll also notice the small decoration slot is relevant for building defensive skills because the best defensive skills are mostly all small decoration skills. Alternatively, I could have gone attack boost, or I could have gone for third health regen augmentation. I just felt it was kind of overkill at that point, that's all. So let's choose another weapon. I'm going to choose one where you really do want an attack boost augmentation. We'll choose the heavy bowguns. Oh, wait a second, what did I choose? Was that under Forge? It is. Here we go. Category, heavy bowguns. And you're going to see, let's see, it should be under, here it is. So here's an example where I go with an attack increase and affinity increase. And your question is why? It's because I'm using the Tear Assault Horn to use spread ammo. So we're going to click on this real fast. Yeah, so with, oh wait, I'm not actually choosing it. Choose it over here. One moment. Yeah, the question is, why didn't we go health regen and affinity for this weapon? Is because I'm going to be using the spread I'm going to be using the spread shots on this weapon. Let's go ahead and take a look at the equipment info. Oh, really? It doesn't show it? Oh, I see. Here we go. So you'll notice for the spread ammo on the Tear Assault Horn, we're getting spread ammo level 3. This is a spread ammo heavy bowgun, and the spread ammo, similar to the bows and the daggers, when you're using it, it doesn't really heal any of your health back. It just doesn't. And the question is then, can I reach 100% affinity with this heavy bowgun? And the answer is yes. So having reached 100% affinity and not needing health regen, my next option is to build attack boost. Okay, so that's kind of the order of priority here. Reach 100% affinity, consider health boost definitely. Like if you're a casual player, it'll usually be health boost first, then affinity. And then finally, if you've got 100% affinity and you can't use health boost, you'll choose the attack up buff, right? The attack boost buff. All right. And I feel like that explains most situations. Let's just take it a few more. We'll take a look at another piece of, another weapon real fast. And if you guys ask a question in the comment section, I'm sure everyone can try to answer your questions. Sword and shield's pretty straightforward. That's going to be health regen and affinity. Lance, gun lance. So gun lance was an exception. With the gun lance, once again, shelling is an explosive damage type, and because it's an explosive damage type, you could have essentially just focus on health regen and have a really defensive build, or alternatively, you could do attack increase. It would increase the damage of your shells slightly, but I think that health regen was more valuable. Heavy bowguns again, actually. Here's another example. Dark Devourer. So here's the Dark Devourer, and you'll notice I went double health regen on the Dark Devourer. But alternatively, what you could have done with the Dark Devourer is you could have gone health regen and attack up. Okay, so you could have augmented for the attack boost, and that would actually affect your cluster bombs level 3, it would affect your sticky ammo level 3, it would slightly affect your wyvern ammo. So there's a lot of good reasons to take the attack boost on the Dark Devourer. I'm just more of a casual player, so I went with the double health regen boost. It's up to you if you want that or not, right? But once again, it's a case where I didn't need affinity because explosive damage types don't use affinity. So you'll notice on the Dark Devourer, I only have affinity of 20% with this setup, right? And this setup was designed to give you high base affinity, and it was designed to give you weakness exploit. But you'll notice I don't reach 100% affinity, and that's no problem. I'm not interested in affinity on the Dark Devourer, and once again, that's because I'm using explosive damage types like cluster bombs. So that's the idea between all of the different augmentations for the weapons. You really have to decide what's best for the weapon that you're bringing. The general rule is to bring your affinity up to 100%, and then pair that with Master's Touch, White Sharpness, and Crit Boost 3. That's the general rule. There's situations where you're using explosive damage types and you have the option of building attack boost at that point, or you could just focus on health regen. There's also cases where there's weapons where the affinity very easily reaches 100%, at which point you can augment for attack up, right? So if you're using something like maybe the Oda Lance, it already has pretty good affinity. You don't need an affinity augmentation. You would just take an attack augmentation to raise the raw by 5. Once again, I'll remind you, you do not use the defense increase buff ever, augmentation ever, and slot upgrade is really, really niche. Slot upgrade would give you an extra small decoration slot that you could use to add something like the Sauner's decoration to, so you really don't need it. Most of the time you're focused on attack increase, affinity increase, and health regen. Alright, well that is the end of my guide. I hope all of that information kind of sunk in, kind of gave you an idea of my thought process behind augmenting particular weapons. You learned about the Elder Melder, you learned about earning Streamstones, and you learned about augmenting your armor to raise the defense. After that, I am all done with saying things. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.